joining us by phone.
All right, citizen participation per Village Resolution 2017-01. Anyone wishing to address the Planning Commission during citizen participation is allowed 5 minutes. Your subject can be anything, whether on the agenda or not. The Planning Commission should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of a publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of the citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they are participating in a public hearing or if specifically allowed by a majority vote of the Planning Commission due to involvement in the agenda item. With that being said, would anybody like to speak during citizen participation? Would anybody like to speak during citizen participation? Last chance. Anybody like to speak during citizen participation? Okay, I'll close citizen participation and move on to approval of the planning commissions from December 12th.
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's start with the 3-lot certified survey map in the town of East Troy off of Swoto Road, PET 310008, within the Village Extraterritorial Plat Review jurisdiction. Justin and Mary Rohr applicants, application 2022-40. Does anybody have any questions about this at all? I mean, you did read Tim's memo. It's kind of a reiteration of something we've already seen. Then I'd be looking
It's all
for a-
squared away now, right?
Yep, then I'd be looking for a motion from somebody.
All right, I'll make a motion to recommend to the village board the approval of the proposed CSM in the town of East Troy, subject to the following conditions as listed number 1.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, on to the telecommunication tower located at 2485, 2491 south of 120 or 120. RXUP 00230A, Village of East Troy applicant, application 2022-38. I will open the public hearing. Now, everybody realizes this is the one that we tabled from our last meeting, right? Okay. Tim?
So just to provide a little bit of context, at the last month's meeting, I incorrectly characterized this as a conditional use, and that's not the case, only because the state legislature adopted a new law a while ago that kind of carved out wireless facilities that were previously conditional uses into a separate process. And essentially, it's similar to a similar to a CU, but it doesn't follow the same criteria. There's a public hearing, but there's not much discretion at the local level with regard to denying a tower. I did revise the staff report, and again, it's basically the new telecommunication tower plus a site plan for the same facility. There is a motion for your consideration. There's a couple of things to point out. And again, these were brought up at last month's meeting. The FAA has determined that the facility will not cause a harm to the public airspace. They have provided documentation showing that there is no other tower that can accommodate their facility, owing to the height of the tower that it has to be. And then moving on to the actual site plan approval, essentially there is a discussion about whether landscaping should be required around the equipment compound. But there again, like we talked about last month, it's basically hidden and landscaping wouldn't add anything. So that's a part of that motion, just basically making a record for why the action was taken. So.
Tim, we also wanted to note item 17 in the staff report, the financial guarantee does not apply in this situation. After discussing it with our attorney, it wouldn't make sense because the village is the property owner. So we wouldn't be doing the financial guarantee in this circumstance.
So again, it is a public hearing. If anybody would like to speak on the topic at all, can do so at this time.
I'd just like to make note that after the concerns that were brought forth last month's meeting, we went ahead and we did some research on the health and safety effects of the tower. Sure, Captain Newman from the Sheriff's Office. And I'll just summarize in a nutshell that if you were inside the fenced compound in the tower and remained there for some time, you might be in danger of some radiation exposure from the equipment in there. But again, you would have to remain in there for quite a long time. But based on the tower that we're going to build, to really get any harmful effects, you would have to go up the tower, grab onto the antenna, and remain in that position for 15 minutes or more, provided the tower was transmitting at 100%. And that tower does not transmit at 100%. It's intermittent transmission as the radio system gets used. So where the concerned citizen is going to live 700 feet away from the tower, there is not going to be a health and safety concern from the tower. And I've provided documentation in the packet that you were given. But I did want to make note that we did go do our due diligence and make sure that we understood everything that's there. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing? Any questions at all?
There you go. I should know that. We have the same thing. I'm Mark Liberta. I'm the Walworth County Administrator. This is a project in the county's capital plan. It's part of our radio system. And although it's largely administered and being managed by the Sheriff's Department, I just wanted to make sure that in case there were any questions from the county as a broader perspective, I would be here to be able to address them if you had any concerns. But the county's very much in support of this based upon its role, not only for the county services, but all the services that it will be an important part of for all police and fire departments and DPW across the county, which affects every citizen. So the county in general is in support of it, and if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to help.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else who would like to speak during the public hearing? If not, then I will close the public hearing. And I'll be looking for a recommendation.
Okay, excuse me.
Hold on,
I'm-
40, before you do, just make sure that when you make your recommendation that you put in the part that you wanted the beacon on top of it from last meeting.
I didn't want to add a lot of extra cost to it.
I just want to add that thing, that one thing. Thanks.
I will make a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the village board the establishment of a new telecommunications tower based on the finding that the height of this tower is required to accommodate the Sheriff's Department's needs, and no other tower in or near East Troy is able to accommodate such requirement, and that the FAA has determined the height of the tower will not pose a threat to air navigation. Also, I would like to add or include that a red beacon be put on top of the tower once it's erected.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. All right, moving on to site plan, potential revisions to the zoning regulations with regards to standards for, oh, shoot, you're right, I do have to do the site plan, I'm sorry, site plan for a new telecommunication tower located at 2485, 2491 South 120th, RXUP 00230A, Village of East Troy applicant 202239. So be looking for somebody make a motion for the site plan.
I will make a motion to approve, to second. Oh, I didn't see that. I don't have that. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I will make a motion that we approve the site plan and the plan of operation as set forth in the submittal contents documents, subject to the following terms and conditions, And number one, the village board approves the new tower for the proposed use. Number two, that the landscape requirement around the base of the tower is set forth in regulations of the zoning code is waived because the compound enclosure is not readily visible. The Plan Commission reserves the right at a later date to impose landscaping requirements should the existing trees or other vegetation in the vicinity at the tower base are removed or no longer exist for whatever reason. And item three, prior to construction, the petitioner must submit written documentation to the village planner that shows that the fall zone will not extend beyond the 100-foot radius as depicted on the site plan.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, now I can move on. All right, thank you. Potential revisions to the zoning regulations with regards to standards for accessory buildings in the industrial zoning districts. Everybody did read Tim's memo, and you saw the redacted red line areas. Any questions about that?
Are we gonna designate a square foot, in the yellow?
Can I say something on that? I
No.
think, can I please? I was gonna say, I think that's something that we would have to handle almost on a case-by-case basis.
Well, certainly you don't want the principal building to be the polystructure.
What if you went a certain percentage, not to exceed a certain percentage of the principal building?
You can do that, yes. I'm not sure that that would work in this instance.
If there's multiple buildings, which one is the primary?
Well, there might be multiple buildings, and they're all considered primary as long as they're related to the same
Would-
operation.
Would this include the dumpster enclosure? Is it
No.
a structure?
No.
No, okay.
So basically buildings. Yeah. So I do think you want to have some kind of parameters that you just don't get a outlandish request and then there's pressure to approve it because there's no upper limit. So yeah, I mean, whatever that threshold is, I think, you know, it would be fine as long as there's something to say, this is okay or it might be okay, but beyond that, it's like, not okay.
I think Eileen's suggestion of a percentage is perfect for this scenario. What would that percentage be? Would that be something like the 35% range, Tim, or do you want to?
Well, you know, we talked about this last month and I drafted something and, you know, so the question is how soon do you want to get this moving forward? You know, obviously this isn't in an ordinance format, so theoretically it would come back to the next month's meeting. I'm not sure we would have a public hearing until we actually fill in that blank. So,
Can I ask maybe and Tim, you'd probably have better access to this than anybody else, but would it make sense for the planning commission to look at pictures, drawings, or whatever of buildings with this added feature in different percentages and said, okay, this building looks too gaudy, or this looks okay, and find out what percentages they look at, because then we'd know what we were approving, rather than just taking a shot at a percentage without really seeing what a building looks like with 25% or 30% of the siding on the building. I don't know.
so just to clarify, or maybe for my benefit, I think what was mentioned as a solution was to say that a polystructure might be okay as long as the size of it doesn't exceed a certain percent of the principal buildings that are on the property. Is that where you were going? Okay. So it can totally be 100% polystructure?
I thought we were also talking about possible certain polystructure material being used on the principal building.
No, this is all about an accessory building. It's okay, so we're okay with the red markings. Tim, you can come back to us with a markup with percentage, and by next meeting, we can think about it, and maybe then we can apply whatever percentage it is at that point. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Recommendations for future agendas, anything, anyone have anything? No? No bucket list items anyone wants to get rid of? No? You good? All right. Next meeting is going to be January 9th at 6:30 right here. Weird, because today is January 9th,
Yes,
isn't
it is January 9th
So
today, so it's
awkward.
actually gonna be February
2023,
13th. I did
which is
notice
really
that
weird.
today. Yes, I know. I did notice that today. Yeah, we'll talk to the guy
Okay,
that does
so-
the agenda.
Yeah. We'll see you in a month, and I'll make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, 40.